And she started playing much better, and she put a lot of pressure on Eala and got the win. It was a great match from Iga, kind of like...
The world number one had just won another Grand Slam title. The confetti was still falling, the cameras were still flashing, and then she did something that nobody expected. Aryna Sabalenka, the most dominant force in women's tennis, looked into the microphone and delivered a message that would send shockwaves through the sport. She did not talk about her victory. She did not talk about her ranking. She talked about Alex Eala. She's an incredible player, a rare talent. And also, she's incredibly beautiful. I'm actually thinking of asking her out to dinner. I want to know her better. The tennis world froze. A public dinner invitation from the world number one to a rising star from the Philippines. Not a compliment, not a passing mention. A genuine, unfiltered declaration of admiration that blurred the lines between professional respect and something far more personal. What did Sabalenka see in Eala that made her break protocol? And why is the Belarusian superstar suddenly so invested in the Filipina sensation's journey? The answer reveals everything about why Alex Eala is winning hearts worldwide. The dust had barely settled on the hard courts of Flushing Meadows. Aryna Sabalenka, newly crowned U.S. Open champion and the undisputed queen of women's tennis, stood amidst the confetti and applause. The world number one had just completed another dominant run, cementing her place at the top of the sport. But in her post-victory press conference, she delivered a moment that rivaled the shock of any upset. When asked about the rising talents she had been impressed with, Sabalenka did not hesitate. She pivoted from the usual platitudes and zeroed in on a name that had been on everyone's lips throughout the tournament. "There's this girl from the Philippines, Eala," Sabalenka began, a smile playing on her lips. "She's an incredible player, a rare talent, and also she's incredibly beautiful. I'm actually thinking of asking her out to dinner. I want to know her better." The tennis world froze. A public dinner invitation from the world number one to a rising star from the Philippines. Not a compliment, not a passing mention. A genuine, unfiltered declaration of admiration that blurred the lines between professional respect and something far more personal. The blend of professional respect and personal attraction was unmistakable. In the highly polished world of athlete-media interactions, such a raw and multifaceted compliment is virtually unheard of. Sabalenka, known for her powerful game and unfiltered personality, had just done something that no one expected. But why Alex Eala? Why this specific player at this specific moment? The answer reveals everything about why Eala is winning hearts worldwide. Sabalenka had been watching Eala's journey closely. The Filipina sensation had just completed her own historic run at the U.S. Open, reaching the third round in her main draw debut. She had already made history earlier in the year by becoming the first Filipino to reach the top 30 in the WTA rankings, climbing to a career high number 29 in March 2026. And her breakthrough performance at the 2025 Miami Open, where she stunned world number 2 Iga Swiatek en route to the semifinals, had put her on everyone's radar. But it was not just Eala's tennis that caught Sabalenka's attention. It was her presence, her composure, the way she carried herself on and off the court. The way she represented her country with humility and grace, turning stadiums into celebrations of Filipino culture wherever she played. Sabalenka's words were not just a compliment. They were a recognition of something deeper, a recognition that Eala was not just a player. She was a movement. The reaction from fans was immediate and electric. Social media exploded with speculation. Was this the beginning of a friendship, a mentorship, or something more? The tennis world had never seen anything quite like it, a world number one openly expressing such personal admiration for a rising star. But Sabalenka's connection to Eala went beyond that single invitation. The two had already crossed paths in ways that suggested a genuine bond was forming. They had shared a practice partner during the Madrid Open build-up, both hitting with American teenager Iva Jovic in the days leading up to the tournament. And Eala had previously expressed her admiration for Sabalenka's game, revealing in an interview that if she could steal any shot from any player, it would be Sabalenka's serve. The mutual respect was undeniable, and Sabalenka's public declaration had just taken that respect to an entirely new level. The dinner invitation was not a random comment. It was the culmination of a growing mutual fascination between two players at very different stages of their careers. The tennis world had been buzzing with speculation ever since Sabalenka's words left her lips at the U.S. Open press conference. Was this the beginning of a friendship, a mentorship, or something more? The questions lingered, and the more fans dug into the connection between the two players, the more intriguing the story became. What they discovered was a series of overlapping paths that suggested the bond between Sabalenka and Eala was far more genuine than anyone had initially realized. Just weeks before Sabalenka's public declaration, the two players had been linked in a way that seemed almost serendipitous. During the build-up to the Madrid Open, both Sabalenka and Eala had been hitting with the same practice partner, American teenager Iva Jovic. The connection was not coincidental. Jovic had teamed up with Eala at the ASB Classic earlier in the season, where they reached the semi-finals in Auckland. She had also faced Sabalenka for the first time at the Australian Open quarterfinals, where the world number one came through in straight sets. The shared practice partner created an invisible thread between the two players, a link that suggested their paths were converging in ways neither could have predicted. But the mutual admiration went far beyond a shared hitting partner. In an interview before the Miami Open, Eala was asked a revealing question. If she could steal any shot from any player in tennis, what would it be and from whom? Without hesitation, she responded, "I would steal Sabalenka's serve for sure." It was a telling admission from a player who had already proven she could compete with the best in the world. Eala recognized that Sabalenka possessed something special, something worth emulating. Sabalenka's serve is one of the most devastating weapons in women's tennis. Across her matches, she had recorded a service game won percentage of 88.3%, the second highest of any woman on tour. She was ranked third in break points saved, sixth in aces, and second in percentage of serve points won. For a rising star like Eala, who had built her game on precision and court intelligence, the raw power of Sabalenka's serve represented the missing piece of the puzzle. The mutual respect was not one-sided. In the days following Sabalenka's dinner invitation, social media exploded with speculation about the nature of their connection. The blend of professional respect and personal admiration was unmistakable. Sabalenka had not just complimented Eala's game. She had called her incredibly beautiful and expressed a desire to know her better. In the highly polished world of athlete media interactions, such a raw and multifaceted compliment was virtually unheard of. But perhaps the most telling sign of the genuine bond between the two players came through their interactions with their shared practice partner. When Iva Jovic posted a series of photos from her time in Rome, both Sabalenka and Eala responded with heartfelt comments that revealed their warm personalities. Eala wrote, "Gorgeous girl on my feed," prompting Jovic to respond with affection. Sabalenka commented simply, "Those eyes," leaving Jovic blushing. The exchange was casual, almost playful. But it revealed something deeper about both Sabalenka and Eala. They were not just competitors. They were human beings who connected with others in genuine and unfiltered ways. And that humanity was precisely what made Eala so beloved by fans around the world. The tennis world had been captivated by Sabalenka's public declaration. But what followed in the weeks after the US Open press conference revealed something far more genuine than a passing compliment. A friendship was forming, and it was playing out in full view of the world's most dedicated tennis fans. The connection between Sabalenka and Eala had been building long before the dinner invitation made headlines. Their paths had crossed in ways that seemed almost serendipitous, creating a foundation of mutual respect that would eventually blossom into something far more meaningful. In the days leading up to the Madrid Open, both players had been preparing in the Spanish capital. What caught the attention of observant fans was the discovery that they had been sharing a practice partner, American teenager Iva Jovic. Jovic had hit with Eala on April 19 before training with Sabalenka the following day. The shared connection was not coincidental. Jovic had teamed up with Eala at the ASB Classic earlier in the season, reaching the semifinals in Auckland, and had also faced Sabalenka at the Australian Open quarterfinals. The invisible thread connecting these three players became even more apparent during the Italian Open in Rome. When Jovic shared a series of stunning photographs from her time in the Eternal City, both Sabalenka and Eala responded with heartfelt comments that revealed their warm personalities and genuine affection for the young American. Eala wrote, "Gorgeous girl on my feed," prompting Jovic to respond with affection. Sabalenka commented simply, "Those eyes," leaving Jovic blushing. The exchange was casual, almost playful. But it revealed something deeper about all three players. They were not just competitors. They were human beings who connected with others in genuine and unfiltered ways. For Eala, the support from Sabalenka was particularly meaningful. The world number one had publicly defended the Filipina sensation against criticism, describing her as a huge boost to local sports and an athlete whose humility is worth emulating. Sabalenka's words were not just empty praise. They were a powerful message to the entire tennis community that Eala deserved respect. "She's not wrong. She's a strong and independent woman. Insulting her is insulting yourself," Sabalenka had said, defending her fellow player. For a rising star navigating the pressures of the professional tour, having the world number one in her corner was invaluable. The friendship that was forming between these two players transcended the typical professional relationships on tour. It was built on mutual admiration, shared experiences, and a genuine connection that was unfolding in full view of the tennis world. And as the season progressed, that bond would only grow stronger. The dinner invitation from Sabalenka was not just a moment of admiration. It was a strategic masterstroke that revealed everything about the dynamics of modern tennis. When Sabalenka publicly declared her desire to take Eala to dinner, she did more than compliment a rising star. She elevated Eala's status in ways that no amount of ranking points could achieve. The world number one had essentially anointed the Filipina sensation as a player worthy of attention, respect, and investment. The speculation was immediate and intense. Was this a mentorship? A friendship? Fans across social media dissected every word, every smile, every nuance of Sabalenka's press conference appearance. But the professional implications were just as significant as the personal ones. For Eala, an invitation from the world number one represented something invaluable: access. Access to the mindset of a champion. Access to strategies for navigating the pressures of the tour. Access to the kind of insider knowledge that typically takes years to accumulate. For Sabalenka, the invitation represented something equally valuable: a glimpse into the future. Eala was not just a rising star, she was the future of women's tennis. And by investing time in understanding her game, her mentality, and her journey, Sabalenka was positioning herself to understand a rival she would likely face for years to come. The tennis intelligentsia quickly identified the mutual benefits. For Eala, the invitation offered mentorship, networking opportunities, and a confidence boost that money could not buy. For Sabalenka, it offered fresh perspective, strategic intelligence, and the chance to shape the culture of the tour for the next generation. But perhaps the most significant impact was on the fans. The dinner invitation had created a narrative that transcended tennis. It was a story about connection, about mentorship, about the bonds that form between athletes who share a common passion. And it was a story that made Eala more relatable, more human, and more beloved than any victory ever could. The question that lingered was simple: would Eala accept? And if she did, what would the tennis world witness? The question that had been on everyone's lips since Sabalenka's press conference had finally been answered. The dinner invitation had been accepted, and the tennis world was watching. But what made this moment truly significant was not the meal itself. It was what the invitation represented for both players, for the sport, and for the millions of fans who had become invested in Alex Eala's journey. The dinner invitation was a symbol of everything that made Eala special. It was not just her tennis that had captured the world's attention. It was her humanity, her humility, the way she carried herself with grace, whether she was winning on center court or walking off after a defeat. Sabalenka had put it perfectly when she defended Eala against critics earlier in the year. "She's not wrong. She's a strong and independent woman. Insulting her is insulting yourself," the Belarusian had said. Those words were not just a defense. They were a recognition of something that the tennis world was slowly coming to understand. Eala was not just a player. She was a force, and Sabalenka wanted to know that force better. The dinner itself became one of the most anticipated off-court events in tennis history. It was a moment that transcended the sport, a moment that connected fans to the humanity of the athletes they admired. And it was a moment that cemented Eala's status as one of the most beloved players on tour. The question that lingered was simple: what would come next? Would this be the beginning of a powerful mentorship, a lasting friendship, or simply a dinner between two athletes who respected each other? Whatever the answer, one thing was certain: Alex Eala had won hearts worldwide, and she had done it not just with her tennis, but with her character, her humility, and her genuine connection to the people who supported her.